A very good morning and a warm welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses just like yourself. If you'd like your questions answered live on air, then feel free to ask any question in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE, that's QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts like myself are on hand 24/7. During the session, we're running a poll, so please do engage and I'll reveal the results at the end. So good morning, everyone. My name is Aaron Patrick, and today, believe it or not, is the 150th live show of Ask the Expert. So big round of applause to everyone involved. On behalf of Intuit QuickBooks, I'd like to thank all of our wonderful viewers who tune in daily in the UK. We've had over 1 million of you tune in so far. Without you, we couldn't have reached this milestone. So a massive thank you to each and every one of you. I'd like to also mention that last week, Ask the Expert was nominated for 5 awards at the Drums Social Purpose Awards. That adds to the total of 37 nominations and 3 awards that the show has won so far. This is a wonderful recognition for our primary purpose has and always will be to bring you the best possible information to help your business. My name, as I said, is Aaron Patrick. I'm a chartered accountant, certified UK trainer, so don't be afraid to ask me any QuickBooks related questions today. And I have a dedicated QuickBooks YouTube channel called Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks Chat. So if you need any more QuickBooks news and advice, then why not go over and give the channel a follow. Also, I run a state-of-the-art accounting firm called Boffix, which also has a dedicated YouTube channel. So why not have a look at that as well? Okay, so that's enough about me, and let's focus on today's session. As always, the session is all about you and your burning questions. If you have a question, then please use any of the social channels to get in touch. So while we wait for the first of the question to arrive, let's talk about some recent issues which our clients are currently facing. The biggest issues, as we can all expect, is just going over one more time that furlough scheme. So you remember this time last week when I was on Ask the Expert, we were talking about how the furlough scheme has affected and how it's been changed and how we are expecting it to go through. Well, we've had some more advice on that and we've got some more details to follow up on. So basically, in a nutshell, if you think about what we were talking about last week, we were talking about the fact that everyone has gone into national lockdown, hence why we've now had an extension to furlough to go with it. And we've got some details of how that extension fully works. So Chancellor Rishi has announced that the furlough scheme will be extended until the end of March amid increased measures for business support as the UK enters a 4-week lockdown. Payments are set to remain at 80% of employees' wages. It comes as the Chancellor said that it was right to go further in the government's efforts to support businesses through the crisis. Sunak also announced a doubling of the self-employment grant to 80%, worth up to a maximum of $7,500 for December and January. The latest extension to support measures will be reviewed in January, however, to decide whether economic circumstances are improved enough to ask employees to contribute more. So we are expecting to, if there is going to be any announcements, to learn about that in due course. The measures follow earlier news that the Bank of England had injected 150 billion into the UK economy. Policymakers are also kept interest rates at a record low of 0.1%, with Sunak adding that all economic and monetary institutions are playing a part. Sunak also added that the support provided will project millions of jobs ahead of what is described as a difficult winter, and we've seen that already. Despite the added support and a recent U-turn on the sale of alcohol, Bank of England said the hospitality sector has suffered from lockdown rules. So we still do see that the hospitality sector themselves are the one that's going to be the worst hit, unfortunately. The government have already spent 40 billion on the furlough scheme since it was first announced in March, with roughly 9.6 million people benefiting from it. That's an update for the furlough scheme, but let's think about what else is on offer. Don't forget that you've got the coronavirus supports sick pay rebate scheme. So the extension to the sick SSP scheme has come through, and we need to make sure that everyone's happy and everyone's comfortable with what and how that's actually been put into place. So basically, the extension of the scheme itself is going to help any businesses out there who's suffered from any employee who's actually got some SSP resulting from coronavirus. So make sure that you're up to date with exactly how the extended coronavirus statutory support rebate scheme works. Make sure that if you do have any employees that are suffering from it, that you can claim accordingly. As I said, there's been also an update to the self-employment income support scheme. There's the way that that's been brought to us in formal news means that we now have more information around it. So the first two grants are now closed, and the third one will open on November the 30th. The fourth one won't be available until February next year. To be eligible, you must now declare that your business has been impacted by reduced demand due to COVID-19 in the qualifying period, which is in itself a stricter eligibility criteria for the third grant compared to the previous two. If you remember in the previous two, all you had to do was just say you've been affected. Now your business must have been, you must be able to prove that there's been an impact by the reduced demand. So it is the fact that the business is still working and still going forward. The third self-employment grant cap increases to 7,500, so that's an increase of what we were expecting to see. If you remember, we were expecting that to come down in line with the job support scheme coming out, but now that's been increased to go with how the furlough scheme is going forward. Rishi also announced an increase of third self-employment grant. It will now offer 80% of an average trading profits capped at 7,500 for the whole 3-month period between the 1st November to the 31st of January. You can apply for the grant from 30th November. Don't forget also the bounce back loan, as we talked about last week. It is definitely something to keep an eye on. I urge everyone to consider it if you are looking in financial difficulties at this point in time. And there's also grants available for rateable premises as well. So just like at the beginning of lockdown, if you remember from last week, we talked about how any businesses out there who has a rateable premises has the ability to get some grants in there as well. So do make sure that you go to your local authority website and just find out if there's any way to claim from there. And I know that's a lot to take in, but the main point to remember here is that the extended furlough scheme itself has been pushed forward. So make sure that you are up to date with and keep an eye on QuickBooks Ask the Expert to make sure that you get all the latest information about how the extended furlough scheme can help you and help your business. But in a nutshell, basically, that's going to be open soon for you to be able to make sure that 80% of your salary can be, or 80% of your employee's salary can be claimed. And don't forget that the now self-employed income support scheme has also been announced and that we can expect to apply that grant from the 30th November. Keep an eye on any grants out there for your local or from your local authority, and also your local authority as well, not just on the rateable premises grants, but they also have other small businesses as well. And with that, that's your whole support package available for you as a small business. So as I said, that's a lot to take in. Let's move now to your wonderful questions. Remember, if you have any questions that you want answered live on air, then feel free to ask in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE, that's QBATE, on Twitter. So let's go to those first questions then. The first question came in from Inspire Video Games from YouTube Live. So great, hopefully you're having a good day. Are these settings in QuickBooks, are there settings in QuickBooks which allow for delivery address to show in the PayPal section of banking in QuickBooks? So I can quickly identify international sales that are not of that were VAT if not applicable. This is a fantastic question here from Inspire. So to bring context of what's going on here, and just remember, I'm a QuickBooks certified trainer. So if you do have any QuickBooks questions, today is a great time to ask those questions. But what's being asked here is that when you connect your PayPal account to QuickBooks itself, you're creating a feed that brings that information directly into QuickBooks. Now, the advantage of that means that you're going to make sure that the data comes in on a regular basis, and also means you can start playing with that data and be able to apply that data and put that data into the right place. Now, the problem that Inspire Video Games has at this point in time is that because they're VAT registered, then what they need to do is they need to make sure that they're matching the right transactions with the right element. So that from a VAT point of view, if they've got anything that's from inside the EU or outside the EU, they're going to have to deal with that differently from any customers that are in the UK. And this causes quite a difficulty and quite an issue when it comes to when we're relying on data that's coming through from connected banks. Now, unfortunately, when you connect your bank and PayPal in this case, you are limited in what information comes through. So what you can do to give yourself a bit of extra help is in the settings cog on the right-hand side of the banking screen, you'll notice there is an option to add additional information there. So tick the little box and it will bring through your bank details. Now, that probably won't give you the answer you need for this particular issue. And on this particular issue, we're going to have to take that one step further. And that one step further is you're going to have to bring in the transactional data into QuickBooks. It's only the transactional data that's going to help you in this circumstance. Because if you think about it, the information coming through from PayPal directly from the bank is already going to have things like your fees been deducted, and there's also could be a collection of different payouts at multiple times. So you may have different people from different elements coming through on PayPal. With that, what I would really suggest that you think about doing is taking the transactions directly from PayPal themselves, going into PayPal and then looking at importing them as a sales receipt. What that will do then is when that information is coming into QuickBooks, that means you'll be able to match it when it hits your QuickBooks bank account, and you'll be able to see those transactions coming through. But because you're getting the transactions directly from PayPal, at that point, you'll be able to determine if they were UK, EU, or non-EU, and you'll be able to apply them accordingly. Another option I might look at for you as well is I would consider looking at a third-party solution as well, because what you'll find from a third-party solution are there's a lot on the App Store, so www.apps.com, and there's a lot of solutions on there which can really help you in your business in terms of making those transactions easier to deal with. If you've only got a handful of transactions on a monthly or weekly basis, then the import and export option is definitely the way I would look at. But if you've got quite a few transactions, then look at ways in which you may be able to use a third-party app to deal with that hard bit for you. Because the thing is when they can connect via APIs and they can put them elements in, then you're going to be able to deal with that a lot easier. So have a look at that. One thing I've been using for my clients is Trade Gecko. It's recently been acquired by Intuit themselves, and that seems to have a lot of options in there in terms of being able to add PayPal and other third-party solutions onto as well. So definitely have a look at items like that. Hopefully you'll find that useful to you. But yeah, in your circumstance, I'd highly recommend that you look at the transactional data, so downloading it from PayPal itself and using that to import it in. There's a few templates as well, and if you do get in touch, we'll look at putting some templates for you as well. So hopefully that helps you inspire video games. If not, though, do get in touch with hello@bopix.com and we're able to look into more detail for you. Vince from Facebook Messenger asks, I had to let go of 3 employees last month as there was no work. Can I hire them back and place them on furlough under the new scheme? Great question there, Vince. So it's all going to be dependent on timing, unfortunately. So the timing of how this is going to work and how everything is coming into place was the 30th of October. So basically, as long as an employee was on your payroll, on your RTI at the 30th of October, and remember when we say payroll, you have to have submitted that information to HMRC themselves. So it had to have gone through RTI, so that's real-time information. As long as they were on the payroll by that date, then we are able then to be able to make sure that they're eligible for the furlough scheme. So it's all going to be about dates on this one. Make sure that you look into it. Now, the way that it works from there is that basically when you come to doing your application, then for the furlough and looking to bring that furlough money in, then at that point, basically, if you've hit that criteria, then you're going to be eligible. It's going to pop up and it's going to give you the opportunity to go through on the HMRC's website. So make sure that that date's been confirmed and been put through. And again, Vince, the big key thing here is making sure that they have been filed. We've had a couple of clients where they've had them on their quote-unquote payroll, but they haven't actually gone through and filed them from an RTI point of view, and it's that filing as an RTI that's the critical bit. Jamel from Instagram DM asks, hi Jamel, I have applied for the bounce back loan. If I don't get it, what are the options do I have? I have a limited company that I set up in December 2019. Well, Jamel, the big thing here is making sure you get that bounce back loan. From an application point of view, we've not come across anyone who's been rejected from it for any a particular reason. So you shouldn't find that you're rejected in any way. But what does cause you issues is that your bank itself may not be eligible for the scheme. Now, if you're already at the point where you've applied for that bounce back loan, you should be absolutely fine. So you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. And I urge you to keep going through that application, even if it seems like it's taking a long time. But the bounce back loan is by far the best solution out there in terms of getting cash directly into your business and making sure that your business has that cash flow needed at this critical time. So do push on from that. Failing that, there are other commercial loans available from banks, but again, I would definitely urge along the lines of going for a bounce back loan as opposed to any other loan. You could look at personal borrowings and other aspects if you are needed that cash sooner rather than later. But I do highly recommend that you keep persevering with that bounce back loan. If you are having a bank that seems to be dragging their feet, do have a look and see if there's any other banking solutions available. So, for example, if you bank with your commercial bank is one particular high street and your personal bank is another particular high street bank, then you do have the opportunity to go and just apply from your personal one as opposed to your business one in them sort of scenarios. And we've had that before where it's just quicker going for your personal bank as opposed to your business ones. There's certain high street lenders out there that are allowing bounce back loans for people who have personal bank accounts, and the only criteria is you create a business bank account during that process, which you can then decide what you do with it at a later time. But yeah, do Jamal, do really push for that bounce back loan because it is by far the best solution out there at this point in time. Malcolm from Facebook Live says, and hello Malcolm, how are you doing? How do you add suppliers' invoices to QuickBooks? Great question here, Malcolm. One of the things to remember about suppliers' invoices is just the terminology in QuickBooks. So the terminology in QuickBooks is the phrase bill, so B-I-L-L. Now, a bill in QuickBooks is exactly what you just said. It's a supplier invoice. And the idea of a bill is a transaction in QuickBooks where you stick in all the information of exactly what you've bought, who you bought it from, if you VAT register, what the VAT consequence is, and you put all those transactions into QuickBooks as a bill. And then what you can do with a bill is at a later date, you can go and pay that bill off. So if you go into your top left-hand corner where it says new, go to suppliers and you'll see the option to bill, and you can add your bill directly from there. And all you're doing really is you're taking that supplier invoice you've got, you grab this supplier invoice, and you're basically going to show what each one is going to be. Another key tip for you as well is you now have the ability to add bills via your mobile phone, and by doing a solution called Snap Receipt. So if you go into the app on QuickBooks, you'll notice that there's an add button on the bottom of the QuickBooks app. From there, press the plus button and you'll get the option to Snap Receipt. What Snap Receipt does is it uses the camera on your phone. You take a photo of that bill, and then what will happen is QuickBooks will read in the information off there that you need to extract. So it's going to get your date, your amounts, and items like that. That means that when you go back into the QuickBooks software, you then have the ability to add your bill without you having to put most of that manual information in. It's going to extract that for you. So I'd highly recommend you looking at the add receipt book functionality, Snap Receipt functionality in QuickBooks. And also, if you are just wanting to put that in manually, then do use the add bill functionality. And one other pro tip is always make sure you take the attachment itself. So either take a photo of it or scan it in or get the PDF document of the supplier invoice and attach it to the transaction itself. So you'll notice at the bottom left-hand corner of every transaction is an attachment box. Always make sure you've got a copy of that transaction there. That way, if HMRC or your accountant or anyone asks you what that transaction relates to, you've got a physical copy of it there if you need to. So good luck with that, Malcolm. Hopefully you'll be able to add those suppliers in no time. Teresa from Instagram DM asks, how does the flexible aspect of this new furlough scheme work? Great question there, Teresa. And it is one of the parts with the new furlough scheme that you need to make sure you're 100% on board with, because it can be really, really useful. So when we first was introduced furlough back in the first lockdown, the first part of it was very strict. It was, if you can't work, then you can go, and then if you are unable to work, should I say, as an employee, then the furlough scheme was available from your employer to be able to claim and make sure that you get 80% of your salary. And the idea then was that it was to, instead of people being made redundant, it was to give them an opportunity to be not working at all for that business, but be able to still claim some grant and some support from the government. Now, when that information was being brought in and when that information was being processed, what we found was there was a decision that clients had to make of basically, can they or do they have any work for an employee, and do they furlough them or do they not furlough them? And it was very strict in terms of you had to make a decision on one or the other, otherwise you weren't eligible for the grants and for the coronavirus job support scheme. Now, with that in mind, what's been brought in is flexible furlough. And the idea there is you now get to choose and you get to move the particular employee between working for you on premises or from home or however it's going to be, but doing commercial work for you and not doing commercial work for you. So basically, are they eligible for job support scheme or are they not eligible? But you get to choose between the two. And that's really helped businesses, because what that means is, especially during times like this where because of lockdowns and because of restrictions to trade, they may not have as much work as they used to have or they're used to having, and they might be working different elements, or they might be working at different times, or whatever the reason is. You may find that businesses are now having to work on reduced hours. Because they're working reduced hours, then the flexible furlough means that you can actually still employ the people that you need during those reduced time slots, and you can have them come in working for you and paid at their normal rates at that point. But the times they're not being able to work for you because you're not working at full capacity, then at that point you can look at claiming for furlough. So it gives you lots of options there, and it's something that we found really, really useful for our clients and been able to utilize from there. Earl from Twitter, hopefully that works well for you, Teresa. Do look into the flexible furlough scheme and do see if you can make sure that it works for you and your business. Earl from Twitter DM asks, can bounce back loans be extended beyond 6 years? What's the procedure for it? Great question there, Earl. Just to give you some context to everyone, when the bounce back loans were first introduced, they were for a 6-year period. First year being completely interest-free and repayment-free, and then you had 5 years after that to make the repayments. We were announced, though, it was about a month ago, maybe a month and a bit ago, that actually there's been an extension to the bounce back loans now, and they're now going on to 10 years. And there's also opportunities there for you to put payment holidays and interest-free periods, interest-only periods and items like that. So it is definitely something to look at for and make sure that you look into. But basically it's just talk to your lender. Your lenders now have the powers to be able to grant those extensions and to work with you because they're all government supported loans. So talk to your lender and you'll be able to find lots of options there to make it as easy as possible for those repayments to come your way. Kendall from Facebook Messenger asks, can I place some of my employees on furlough 4 to 5 weeks and bring them back on a full-time basis when business picks up? Yes, exactly. That's exactly where this whole flexible furlough scheme and the ability for you to have that extra flexibility has come from. So your employees that are on furlough for 4 to 5 weeks, you are putting them on to make sure you've got all of your HR elements in place to make sure everything's all working there, but then you have the ability to bring them back at a later point. And that's the whole point of furlough scheme. The idea is that you're protecting jobs during periods where you as a business aren't able to be able to keep those people employed on fully. That's why you've been given the opportunity to get that furlough money, so that you can keep those people employed during the tough times, and hopefully when it starts coming back, you'll have the ability to bring it back in. Christina from Facebook Live asks, hi Aaron, have you had any experience being able to extend statutory filing deadlines for your clients for HMRC due to COVID, key personnel being furloughed, etc.? We've had a mixed bag of responses from them and would like to be interested in hear from your experience. Great question there, Christina. So for context, when it came to extended of deadlines, Companies House has given us, or every company out there, the ability for an extra 3 months. So it's given a year's worth before having to make a filing on Companies House. But HMRC was already an annual a year to go, so there's been no official extension being granted there. That being said, though, if you do talk to HMRC and use the COVID line, we have had mixed response as well, but there is normally, if there's a legitimate reason as to why, then we've been able to work solutions for them. It normally finds that the one they have been much more working with us than anything else is payments. So if we go to them and get at least the accounts filed and the CT600 filed, then normally we're in a much better position to be able to talk to them about payments and be able to make sure that those payments can be more manageable for our clients. So we have found that getting everything filed on time and then talking to them about any outstanding fees and outstanding taxes, then we'll be able to come to some sort of arrangement much easier. But yeah, when it comes to extension of the CT600, it has been, or any filing deadline in VAT, HMRC, PAY and everything else, it's always been a case-by-case basis, and I assume that's how it's going to be. It's one of those where you talk to them, as long as you've got good standing from previous history and everything else, we tend to find that those clients have a better opportunity to be able to be granted extensions, but again, it's on case by case. Len from, hopefully that helps there, Christina. Len from Facebook Live asks, I have a client who needs to use multiple delivery addresses on invoice for their customers. QBO doesn't seem to permit this as their desktop did. Do you have any suggestions as to how this could be achieved? I certainly do, Len. So a little known fact about this one is locations within QuickBooks. So if you turn locations on QuickBooks, then basically you can then define from the location and you can change those addresses dependent on which location it is. So that makes it so much easier for you to be able to do exactly what you're doing here, where you turn locations on and then you'll be able to define which location relates to each individual address. So I don't know why it's such a hidden one, but it is one of those hidden ones where you just need to turn locations on and you get extra functionality in there. For you to be able to use locations, Len, just so you know, you have to be on the Plus version of QuickBooks, so that's the highest tier, and then turn locations on and you'll see much more functionality from there. Hopefully that helps, Len. Hopefully that answers your question. Sandra from Twitter DM asks, morning Aaron, I've started a full-time freelancer only in August 2020. My tax returns for last year are based on my earnings from my day job. Am I eligible to claim self-employment scheme grants based on that? Well, the good news is, Sandra, that the new government support scheme are completely independent from the first self-employment income support scheme. So the good news is that your eligibility wide is completely open one more time. So as long as everything's come through from there, so August 2020, you should find that there is a, just thinking of the dates there, but you should find that you'll basically just need to keep an eye on your emails from HMRC. HMRC will be sending out emails just like they did last time, basically letting you know if you are eligible or not eligible. And also they have an eligibility tracker directly on their website. So do go in and just check and put in your details you've just said there into the eligibility, and you'll know right or wrong. But again, the good news is for you is because it's not independent, you don't have to have claimed the first scheme to be eligible for the new scheme. So it does give you the opportunity to go in and get from there. Patricia from Facebook Live, and this is our last question, unfortunately, says, if clients pay you cash, apart from setting up a cash account, do you do anything else, please? Basically, you've got it absolutely spot on there. So having a cash account within QuickBooks is critical, making sure it's on your dashboard, and then just making sure that when you do mark an item as paid, that you select that cash. Now, one thing I would highly recommend as well is don't be afraid to have multiple cash accounts. Call those cash accounts what it is you use in your business. So if you walk around with a red sack that you put your money in, or you walk around with a till float or whatever it's going to be, call it that so that you can take ownership of what that amount's going to be. That then gives you the opportunity then of being able to mark it as paid for cash, and you can say which cash pot you were using at each time. It's going to make you easier than that. Failing that, there is another little trick as well, and that's called undeposited funds. Undeposited funds is effectively a cash account, but it has a lovely audit trail that goes with it. So the idea of undeposited funds is you mark a transaction as being paid via undeposited funds, and then it's basically sat in limbo within QuickBooks at that point. And then every time that you interact with that bank account and your money is deposited in, when you say you're going to deposit the money in, you can select that actual transaction. So if you go in and bank once a week and you're going through paying in 12 different transactions at that point, then you can actually go through each individual transaction and tick them off and make sure they go into QuickBooks. So undeposited funds is sometimes a really powerful way of being able to make sure that you can get transactions into QuickBooks. So hopefully that helps you there. Cash account's always going to be the one that we would highly recommend, just because it's on that dashboard and you can take ownership of it, and failing that, undeposited funds is a really good way of doing it. And with that, unfortunately, that's the end of today's session. And with 150 of these Ask the Expert, it's been an absolute pleasure. So first of all, poll results in from today. So we asked you the following: is your business prepared to survive the second UK lockdown? Questions was 75% of you said yes and 25% said no. So that's really, really positive. Slightly down from this time last week where we were up to almost 80% said yes. But I think that's basically with the changing of times and things are moving on. And we are seeing that there are definitely some more this time around in terms of lockdown. It is a much more tricky one to make sure, with it being the winter months and with it being quarter 4 as well. But it is great that 75% of you out there are looking like you're prepared. With that 25%, please do keep in touch with us at Ask the Expert here, making sure that you keep logging in, because we will make sure that we get as much advice to you as we possibly can. And with that, then I just need to clear to go through the final bits. So if you have any questions, then please get in touch with the QuickBooks support team. So or myself on hello@boffix.com. So if you do have any questions, make sure you go and pass it over to hello@boffix.com. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Jonah Jensen. Jonah is a founder, executive chairman in the UK's #1 baby and children's toiletry brand, Child's Farm. Earlier this week, she launched an adult brand, Farmology, following huge demand from women and parents. And if it's anything like the last time she was on Ask the Expert, it'll be a brilliant one. Tune in to learn how you can become the best-selling brand in your vertical. Quick reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountant and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.